and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us on this bright, sunny day. And you know what? I just have to say happy birthday to Darren. How old are you now, Darren? 60, 65?
Getting there, Brian. I'm getting there pretty quick. I'm actually closer to there than I am to being a newborn. So, yeah, I'm over halfway along that journey. But you know what? It's been kind of interesting. Yeah, and then some. But you know, still being over the hill, Brian, it's kind of good in a lot of ways because I've learned quite a few things along the way. One of the things I've learned about is gosses, wilt, and corn. And we're going to share some things about gosses today that really will be important for you as you get your seed this spring.
Yeah, that was a nice transition there, Darren. Let's talk about you getting older to gosses, wilt. Well, now let's transition to one thing.
Both things you can't do much about, Brian.
No, and now let's go to something you can do a lot about. That is the tillage system you're going to use on your farm. Today we wanted to focus on strip till and especially show you some of the berms that get created out in the field with strip till and talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of this particular tillage system.
We've got an interesting weed of the week this week, but first, here's today's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
You know what, Brian, when it comes to the Farm Bill and spending on food stamps, a lot of people are confused that this all gets lumped into one pot.
Yeah, it really does. And so this is one of the things I've been amazed at. In the last year and a half, there have been some different proposals out there to split the Farm Bill, or what actually goes to farmers, from food stamps. And back in 2009, 2010, 2011, you start looking at, oh my goodness, we spent all this money on the Farm Bill. Well, yes and no. We spent 65% on food stamps.
Well, and that number's been growing. You know, there are many reasons for that. Of course, our country has been in poor economic times compared to where we were a few years back. So that's certainly part of it as more people have gotten onto food stamps and some sort of government assistance. The challenge for farmers is we're taking all the heat on this, that, wow, you farmers are getting so much money. No, we're not. But yes, in the quote-unquote Farm Bill, there is a lot of spending. There's no doubt.
Okay, so I just wanted to look at the actual numbers from 2011. We don't have 2012s quite yet. But with 2011, I just wanted to make sure you knew what the true spending numbers were. And by the way, our research people here at Ag PhD told me it was very difficult to get these numbers. It's hard to find out how much the government's actually spending.
Well, that's no surprise to me, Brian. You know, there are a lot of people spending the money, and yeah, getting it all accounted for sometimes takes a little bit of time.
Okay, so basically the grand total spending in 2011 for the Farm Bill was $109 billion. I just wanted you to know with nutrition, the nutrition programs are food stamps basically for the most part. Out of that $109 billion, over $70 billion was spent on food stamps. So that only leaves $39 billion left. Not all that went to farmers either. You start looking at some of the other things like research, like trade and tax provisions, like energy, trade and exports, all these different things. That didn't come right to the farmer. I'm farming ground. I didn't get any of that money. So what it really came back to, the commodities programs for 2011 was $6.5 billion. So $6.5 billion out of $109 billion, that's it. That's what went to farmers. Now you could say, well, on crop insurance too. Yes, there was another $12 billion for crop insurance, but you know, that's all we got. So yeah, even if you add those two numbers together, you're only talking around $18 billion out of $109 billion.
Problem is, Brian, in Washington, there's always these compromises because more urban states, they're much in favor of having food stamp programs because they've got a lot more poor people that live in those areas and they want to make sure they're taken care of and they don't have a lot of farms. But then you've got rural states where the population is much lower. They're much more concerned about the farms and keeping them going. And really, as a country, what we're concerned about is we want to have a cheap food supply, we want to have plentiful food, and we want to have good, safe food to consume. And fortunately, on all three of those things, we're succeeding very well in the United States compared to really any other country around the world. So let's just hope, Brian, that the politicians get along enough that we can keep that going because our food source is really a strength for our country. And if you don't understand that, just think about it for one day, how much you're eating, and think about everybody else around the world and how many calories they're consuming. And granted, sometimes we don't always make the best food choices, but we have choices, and that's pretty nice.
Yeah, and the other thing, and where I wanted to finish with this is, yes, there is a little bit of money, and I realize $18 billion is more than a little, but really when you divide that out for every person in the United States, we're not talking a lot of dollars per person. And because of that investment that they've made in farmers, we now have the lowest cost food supply in the whole world. So we're spending less of our income on food than anywhere else in the world, and how can you beat that?
Well, one of the reasons why, Brian, is we're doing such a great job controlling our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seeds so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
Speed, strength, and efficiency make Capello corn heads a head above the rest. Built with polymer components that exceed industry standards, Capello corn heads continue to push the boundaries for maximizing grain retention while using less energy. Visit CapelloUSA.com and learn more about Capello's state-of-the-art chopping technology that cuts cleaner, allowing your horsepower to remain where it belongs, with your combine, so you can harvest faster in all weather conditions. Add to that an amazing folding feature, and it's clear to see why Capello is a head above the rest.
Today's number is 3. You can see it everywhere, and it can stand for almost anything. But when it comes to protecting the nitrogen that feeds your crops, 3 is the special number that sets Nutrisphere N, Nitrogen Fertilizer Manager, apart. Because Nutrisphere N is proven to reduce all 3 forms of nitrogen loss, which adds up to keeping more nitrogen and yield where it belongs. So ask for Nutrisphere N, the stabilizer that fights nitrogen loss 3 ways.
In the world of four-wheel drive tractors, there is no name more powerful than Steiger. The newest addition to the powerful Case IH Steiger line is the Steiger Rowtrack, available at Titan Machinery. Designed for row crop use, the Rowtrack provides more maneuverability and reduces compaction while maintaining power and performance. It's available with 16, 18, or 24-inch tracks for row spacing as narrow as 20 inches. Visit your Titan Machinery dealer today to learn more about the Case IH Steiger Rowtrack. Titan Machinery, better solutions.
You expect a lot from this seed, and as it grows through each stage of development, Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers is there, feeding your crop exactly what it needs when it needs it. So no matter how you fertilize, no matter when, Agro Liquid efficiently brings all the nutrients your crop needs for a great harvest. From 1 kernel in the ground to 600 on the ear. For better yields and better quality, Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers.
Well, Darren, it's that time of year again where farmers are going to get mad.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because they ordered corn and paid for it like 6-8 months ago. And about now is when seed dealers start coming out to farmers saying, yeah, you know that seed you ordered and paid for a long time ago and I told you I'd get, I don't have it. But I got some other great numbers for you. So plant these. They'll be excellent on your farm.
All right. Now, first of all, honestly, is it going to make a big difference? Probably not, because in most cases, if you don't have any problems in your field, there isn't going to be that big a difference between one hybrid and the next. And usually what happens on our farm is the hybrid that won everything last year is middle of the pack this year. And something that was middle of the pack last year may be our best number this year. You just don't know what the weather's going to bring. Now, there is one big variable though. If you have a certain disease problem, maybe it's gray leaf spot, maybe it's Goss's wilt, now you do have to be very fussy about which hybrid you get, and just any old substitute hybrid may not be good enough.
Yeah, you mentioned gray leaf spot. I don't mind that so much because you can go spray a foliar fungicide.
I don't mind gray leaf spot?
Well,
come on now, that's a major
Yeah, but at least
disease.
I have a rescue option.
Yes, that's
with
true.
With Goss's wilt, I've got no rescue option. The problem with Goss's wilt, it's a bacteria. It's not a fungus. I can't go spray headline on it and control it. So once I put that seed in the ground, I'm stuck. There's nothing else I can do. 2
years ago on our farm, it was a big issue, and especially with certain hybrids that weren't very tolerant. But last year, you know, we had this great big Goss's wilt study. We saved a part of a field that had been corn on corn for a long time and it had Goss's. We thought this is okay. We're going to do some research out here and try and learn some things. Well, we had virtually no Goss's wilt pressure because we had the drought in 2012.
Yep, so we don't know what types of conditions we're going to end up with this year, but we do know that if you've got a history of Goss's wilt and you're in an area with a history of Goss's wilt, you're much more likely to get this particular disease. So why take the chance? Don't plant a corn hybrid that doesn't have good tolerance to Goss's wilt. Now let's talk specifically about where you're more susceptible.
Well, Goss's wilt is a bacterial disease, and it's certainly going to survive in the residue in your field. So if you've got some Goss's wilt out there, corn on corn is not the best thing you can do. If you're doing corn on corn, your chances of having a Goss's wilt problem are much higher than your neighbor who's in a crop rotational system. That said, Goss's wilt can certainly spread through the area, and just because you haven't had it in your field before, but it is in your area, you may have it even if your field has never seen it. So you do have to be aware of it.
Okay, how about early planting versus late planting? Where do you have more risk?
Well, that's a good question. You know, anytime you're planting early, you have more chance of having disease type of issues. And it all kind of depends on, you know, whether you're going to have. If you have lots of moisture, there's more chance of that gosses splashing up and spreading through your crop. If you're in drier conditions, then there's certainly less chance.
We don't really know for sure. A lot of people will say, oh, the early planting is worse. We don't know. It depends a lot on when you get your rain and when the Goss's wilt moves into your area and that type of thing. But here's what we do know. If you take the very best possible care of your crop, you're less likely to have a problem. In other words, if you have great fertility, if you have great weed, insect, and disease control, I mean for diseases other than Goss's wilt, if you make your plant as strong as possible, it can withstand Goss's wilt a little bit better. But even with that being said, you could still lose 20, 30, even 40 bushels per acre.
The earlier that Goss's wilt impacts your fields, the more yield damage you're going to have. Now, a few years back when we first saw Goss's wilt on our farm, well, it didn't hit really until August. The corn was already made. All the ears were already pollinated, the kernels were already developed. It really didn't have a big impact on us, but it did set it up for coming a little bit earlier the next time, which is exactly what happened. That's where we saw some lodging and some yield loss in our fields. So just pay attention. If your Goss's is coming as early as June, you've got some big time issues. If your Goss's comes late in the year, like in August or even early September, it's not nearly as big of a concern.
Once again, we just wanted to make sure you understand Goss's wilt is a bad disease. It's a bacterial disease. You can't control it with fungicides, and your best method of control by far, in addition to crop rotation, is making sure you have the right variety planted on your farm.
One other thing you need to do for any situation to improve crop production is control our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Back in 1966, Advanced Drainage Systems, Inc. was the first company to start manufacturing plastic agricultural drainage pipe in the United States. And today, ADS continues our leadership with superior pipe production and service capabilities. Our roots are firmly entrenched in the agriculture industry, and we're committed to helping farmers grow their business. With 54 manufacturing plants and 24 distribution yards throughout the world, you can count on ADS and our green striped pipe to be there when you need us. Advanced Drainage Systems, the green striped pipe you can count on.
You can't fill a barrel any fuller than its lowest stave, and your crops can't do any better than the nutrient that's in shortest supply. Your yield potential is only as good as the weakest nutrient in your fertilizer program. Give your crops more than just NPK. Prescription apply all the micronutrients your crop needs, each one customized for your crop's potential. MicroLink, linking yield to potential.
There are more mouths to feed than ever before. What are farmers doing to meet the challenge? They're using agronomically designed equipment from Case IH. Our Quadtrac technology, soil management, and planting systems are designed to foster a better growing environment that helps farmers maximize yield potential. And our deep understanding of agriculture is preparing them for the challenges ahead. Will you be ready?
I'm ready.
Go to caseih.com to learn more.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
At Ag PhD, we've talked quite a bit about strip till in the past, and I guess we just wanted to discuss these berms a little bit today and talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages to strip till.
Well, one thing we like to do in strip till, it's a little different than some other guys, is we like to use a chopping corn head. We chop up a lot of that residue, we try to make small pieces. That way we can easily move it over to the side or grind it up in our strip. Either way works out good for us, whether it's in the strip and chopped up or it's pushed off to the side. It's just so it's going to flow through our equipment that much better. Now, some people like to leave those stalks nice and tall. We've just had too many problems, like right here. We're on the end rows. They've been, you can see a lot of the stalks have gotten run over here, but we'd see those big long stalks. Yeah, it's nice trying to keep that residue off the ground, but when you get to this part of the field, we drive over them. Now we got big long pieces laying across, and in the spring, we end up with issues.
Well, it happens all the time. Even if your plant's just normally decaying, it starts to tip over, and pretty soon you get a big piece of residue right in the middle, and then you end up trying to plant over that. You can't cut it very well because it's a great big thick stalk, and you hairpin that residue. We just can't have that. We want to have the best stand possible out there. That's been one of the drawbacks over the years that a lot of guys have said is, well, I don't have quite as nice a stand in my strip till as I do my conventional till, so I'm going back to conventional till. What we're trying to do here is take the best of no-till and the best of conventional till and meld those two things together. So we've got a nice berm here, and you'll see this is a little bit raised from the ground that's right next to it. That's absolutely ideal. That's what we're looking for. So now when we go in and plant, we can clear away a little bit of this dirt, and right below it, we've got a nice, clean, residue-free seed bed that's a little bit warmer, actually quite a bit warmer than where we've got stalks right in between.
What we've seen with some other farms around the area, and we've seen it on our farm from time to time, is when we get into doing this strip tillage, we end up with a little depression where we're actually pushing some of that dirt out to the side. That's not what we want at all. Now you're planting into a trench and you're just asking for problems. If residue blows around in the winter, it's going to end up in the low spots, which is that trench where you want to plant. So you do want to make sure you have a nice berm, plus you get good soil warm up this way because we've got a nice black strip here that's going to soak in that sun in the spring. And we've seen noticeable temperature differences in that strip versus just off to the side.
Yeah, a lot of times it's 7 degrees different, 8 degrees different in the spring. It will be just slightly colder than conventional till, but not much. In the strip, it's almost as warm as what conventional till is. Now you'll also notice that we're running these strips right in between the old corn rows. We do the same thing if we're strip tilling into soybean ground. We run right in between the old soybean rows. It's a lot easier that way. You have a lot less problems with the strip till machine, and you can make a really nice berm. When we do this strip till, we're placing the nutrients like P and K down about 8 to 10 inches deep. We are not typically putting nitrogen on at the same time, and a lot of people say, well, now, boy, you have to make an extra trip. Yep, we do. So either we're putting on anhydrous in a separate application, or we're going out and spraying liquid nitrogen or spraying urea right over the top. We don't worry as much about nitrogen and getting it real deep because nitrogen will move down in the soil with rainfall. But with P and K, it's going to stay where you put it, and we don't want our P and K in the top 2-3 inches of soil. We've already got more than enough P and K there in most fields. We want to get our P and K down a little bit deeper so we make our crop a lot more tolerant to drought conditions. We know we can get the roots down deep. We know we've got some moisture down there. We just want to get some plant food down there as well.
Well, there's certainly a lot of things that go into strip tillage, but it's important to get out as you're doing the strip tillage in your fields in the fall, hopefully, is to take a look at that berm. Make sure you've got a little rise there, so you've got a couple inches of berm built up. This is going to help you out in the spring. That way, if you can move some residue off there, you still have a little soil you can push away to the side. You're going to be warmer in the spring that way, and you can just go right in and plant. So you'll save a lot of time come spring.
Okay, let's talk about some last advantages and disadvantages with strip till. Just a few things I can think of off the top of my head. If I'm going down 10 inches deep here with my fertilizer, that's a huge advantage. I also now have basically completely eliminated all compaction down to 10 inches, so I get very fast root growth down there. I've got pretty warm soil here, but compared to conventional till, it's really not any warmer. In fact, it might even be a degree or two cooler in that berm or in that strip than conventional till, and that leads me to one of the biggest disadvantages with strip till. Yeah, it's going to be just slightly cooler, especially in between the rows. It's going to be a lot cooler than conventional till, but beyond that, it takes a lot more time to do strip till compared to conventional till. We can probably get over 3 times as many acres with conventional till as compared to strip till, but I just wanted to bring up my last big advantage with strip till. When we're placing that fertilizer right below where we're going to plant the seed, we usually can get by with a lot of times 30% less P&K and get the same yield response. It's been a proven fact over the years you get better uptake on P&K when it's right in the row, and especially directly below where the seed's going to be planted, as compared to broadcast out over a whole field. Like no-till, we're able to save a bunch of moisture out in that field, we catch a bunch of snowfall, and we're overall reducing erosion. You see big-time erosion reductions when you're comparing strip till versus conventional till.
Well, there's certainly a lot of advantages to changing your tillage program, but there are also advantages if you improve your weed control program. We'll show you how to kill this tough weed coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
You work to protect your farm's legacy and to keep it going. Introducing the Enlist Weed Control System, an advanced herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate for exceptional control of tough weeds. The next chapter begins.
Our weed of the week is Hemp Sesbania.
Yeah, Darren, this is a member of the bean family, and the thing I like least about Hemp Sesbania is it can host soybean cyst nematode. So you rotate to corn and you figure, oh, I'm in good shape. I'm going to plant corn for 2 or 3 years. I'll go back to soybeans and most of the nematodes are gone. But if you don't do a great job controlling Hemp Sesbania, you're going to have just as many or more nematodes in the future.
Well, when you look at Hemp Sesbania, the thing that I look at is it has pinnately compound leaflets, meaning there's lots of little leaflets on each big branch. So it's not like you have a trifoliate like soybeans where you have just 3 leaves. You may have 20, you may have 40 or 50 on one particular leaf set. So with Hemp Sesbania, there's a lot of little leaves out there, so getting good coverage on those post-emerge sprays is very important.
Okay, when you talk about post-emerge, anytime we're discussing broadleaf weeds, and I think about something in the bean family, it's probably going to be pretty easy to control in grass crops like corn or wheat, and a lot more difficult to control in soybeans. So let's take that tough crop. How are we going to stop this thing in soybeans?
Well, with Valor, you can get about 70 or 80% control. So that's a good way to start. I would bump the Valor rate up a little bit. Instead of just using 2 ounces, I'd use 2.5. That's going to give you a little bit more control. I like the 3 ounce rate in the fall. In the spring, I think there's a little too much splash up when we get to 3. I think it's a little strong, so I'd stay at 2.5. Then post-emerge, I'd come back in with Basagran. I'd tank mix in some Cobra with that, or perhaps some Flex Star to give it a little extra kick. Otherwise, if you have STS soybeans, you can go with a little higher rate of Classic or Synchrony, and they can do a nice job for you as well.
Yeah, but you got to be careful with that carryover with Classic if you've got high pH soils. The other thing I guess I'd bring up, Roundup and Liberty crops. At least at this point, Hemp Sesbania is not resistant to Roundup, so Roundup's usually a good option.
Now in corn, we've got several options. You can start out with Verdict Down. It gives you some residual control, plus it has a great burn down. Then I'd come back with Status, but I wouldn't use the Roundup Ready rate. I'd use the full rate of Status. Otherwise, you could switch to Callisto, Loudus, and Impact. There are also decent options.
Okay, how about in wheat?
Well, in wheat, I'd start out with Sharpen. It's a great burn down, plus a little bit of residual. Then I'd come back in crop with a high rate of Husky, or if you didn't want to use Husky, you could certainly use Addition Broadspec.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week, Hemp Sesbania, but stay tuned, Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
Advanced farming systems from Case IH helps producers be ready. AFS is less complex and built right into our equipment, and our team of dedicated specialists are here to keep you rolling. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready?
Why are some sprayers always stuck? We'll expose the cold hard facts in today's Iron Talk. Did you ever notice that the same people are always getting stuck on the wet years? Dad always told Brian and me that it was due to operator error. And of course, Brian and I were the operators. However, it turns out Dad may have been equally to blame. Here's why. Considering self-propelled sprayers, there are some big differences. Some have booms out on the front of the machine, while others have the booms in the back. Some have the engine out front, and others have it behind the cab. The size and positioning of the spray tank is also a big consideration. But when it comes to getting stuck in a mud hole, the term weight distribution is one you should pay attention to on your farm. There's a big difference from one brand to the next. By shifting more weight to the rear axle as you travel through soft and wet soil, your rear end of the equipment is much more likely to sink and eventually get stuck. Sprayers that balance the weight equally from front to back and from side to side are much less likely to find the bottom of a mud hole. As you're preparing equipment this spring, run across a scale and look at where the weight is distributed. It may just change your perspective, and it will definitely improve your performance. That's today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
For lower cost, higher production, see your Mandaco agri-dealer. Ask about the best production-built land roller on the market. Mandaco, simple design for easy transport to easy use. 12 to 85-foot widths, heavy-duty 4x8 3/8-inch tube frame, and now available with a steerable wing wheel. Mandaco land rollers, improved soil-to-seed contact, faster, more uniform germination, less moisture loss, eliminate downtime due to rocks. See your Mandaco agri-dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call.
Micronutrients are not optional for plants, they are essential. TJ Micromix is a profit-proven management tool that ensures the availability of essential secondary and micronutrients. Formulated as a dry granule or liquid, TJ Micromix is plant available, easy to mix and apply. The synergistic fertilizer mix delivers consistent yield response on a variety of crops by complementing an NPK fertilizer program. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your fertilizer dealer and get your TJ Micromix today.
There are more mouths to feed than ever before. What are farmers doing to meet the challenge? They're using agronomically designed equipment from Case IH. Our Quadtrac technology, soil management, and planting systems are designed to foster a better growing environment that helps farmers maximize yield potential. And our deep understanding of agriculture is preparing them for the challenges ahead. Will you be ready?
I'm ready.
Go to caseih.com to learn more.
Today's number is 3. You can see it everywhere, and it can stand for almost anything. But when it comes to protecting the nitrogen that feeds your crops, 3 is the special number that sets Nutrisphere N, Nitrogen Fertilizer Manager, apart. Because Nutrisphere N is proven to reduce all 3 forms of nitrogen loss, which adds up to keeping more nitrogen and yield where it belongs. So ask for Nutrisphere N, the stabilizer that fights nitrogen loss 3 ways.
Speed, strength, and efficiency make Capello corn heads a head above the rest. Built with polymer components that exceed industry standards, Capello corn heads continue to push the boundaries for maximizing grain retention while using less energy. Visit CapelloUSA.com and learn more about Capello's state-of-the-art chopping technology that cuts cleaner, allowing your horsepower to remain where it belongs, with your combine, so you can harvest faster in all weather conditions. Add to that an amazing folding feature, and it's clear to see why Capello is a head above the rest.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The all-new S-Cube commercial tender is the only tender on the market with poly tanks, giving you the capability to haul seed, fertilizer, water, or liquid fertilizer. Each cube can hold 300 units of seed, 2,000 gallons of liquid, or 300 cubic feet of fertilizer. Options include full functioning wireless remote, stainless steel conveyors, and self-contained hydraulics. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show, but be sure to tune in again next time for another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Organic matter improves soil structure and tilth. It improves microbial activity and soil life. Organic matter allows soils to hold more water and nutrients for your crop. To learn more about building it, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.